Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports Soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today as always by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, NWSL analyst and broadcaster. On today's episode, we have another bit of news and notes episode to go over. Lots of things happening in NWSL for everyone. But before we get into all that, a quick reminder that we're on YouTube as video. Subscribe to us at youtube.com/attacking third. You'll never miss a new episode whenever we go live or our exclusive interviews, plus so much more. Subscribe to Attacking Third YouTube. And if you missed any of the AFC Asian Women's Cup action, you can rewatch the full quarterfinal matches on Paramount Plus, and you can get extended highlights on Attacking Third YouTube. So much going on, Lisa. I'm happy to be here with you once again to go through it all. How are you doing this lovely Monday?
I mean, I'm good. You're right. There's just so much to go through. We talk about it a lot, you and I, off air, casual conversation, like, all right, content planning, what's going to happen? And then bam, things happen for us and we get to talk about them. But yeah, lots of soccer coming down the pipe. Hopefully a little bit, right? Like, how are you? Happy Monday.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I think it's safe to say that we made it. There has been some snow that has been in our way, I think, as Philadelphians and Chicagoans, and we made it. So we're here to just roll back out into the snow, from the snow, and talk about everything that's been happening around NWSL in light of preseason looming closer. Which maybe I think the first thing we should talk about, I think at the top of this episode, are some additional dates, right? So initially in the off season, NWSL announced a bit of framework in terms of timeline and important dates for the upcoming 2022 season that included a weekend date for the NWSL Championship Final, that included a date for the Challenge Cup Final, and a preseason reporting date of February 1. But some interesting news coming out, seeing some things from Equalizer Soccer, reporting that although there is no official schedule at the moment for Challenge Cup or the regular season out at this time, that apparently, according to sources, the regular season is set to start the last weekend of April, Friday the 29th and the 30th, and May 1st, while the Challenge Cup final has been set since December within that framework that we're chatting a little bit about right now for Saturday, May 7th. So again, that's regular season starting the week before a Challenge Cup final with a full slate of matches set for that same Challenge Cup final weekend. A few days before, teams within that Challenge Cup final will apparently need to possibly reschedule or change those regular season games. It's not sounding like the most well thought out or planned ideas for right now, Lisa.
That's such an understatement. It's not seeming like well thought out plan. It's not. It is not a well thought out plan. To have the Challenge Cup dubbed as a type of preseason competition leading up to the regular season for these teams, and for the league, they want the teams and the players to take the Challenge Cup very seriously. They win a cup. It's one of the winnings that a team can have throughout the regular season, along with the Shield, and then winning the NWSL championship. So it's something that the league wants the teams to take very seriously. Then they say, okay, but we're going to start the regular season a week before the Challenge Cup even concludes. And we're also going to place a full slate of matches on the weekend of the Challenge Cup final. So that doesn't make any sense to me, because if you're a team that is competing in the Challenge Cup, ultimately you would want to try to get to the cup. But now at this point, you could potentially have, if you make it to the Challenge Cup final, you could potentially have your first games, your home openers, perhaps, where you have a lot of fanfare surrounding the players and the team in the stadium, be canceled or rescheduled. So then you potentially have the possibility of playing two games closer, and maybe a Wednesday, Friday, a Wednesday, Saturday. That's not looking too likely. Like, if I'm a player, I'm almost saying, okay, we'll compete in the Challenge Cup, but I don't want to make it to the final because I don't want my games to be rescheduled, and I don't want my regular season to be pushed back, and I don't want to get injured in the cup final, and then it affects my regular season minutes. This is just, it's very odd to me that they're trying to overlap these and squeeze them in. Why not make the Challenge Cup a little shorter or put more games throughout the middle of the week? But no official Challenge Cup schedule has been released at this point. No regular season schedule has been released at this point, but just backwards, I think, is my initial reaction to this, Sandra. It's backwards.
Yeah, I mean, just taking since we're going backwards already, let's keep taking further steps back. Just when that initial framework was announced, yes, mentioning the February 1 preseason deadline, and then the actual Challenge Cup itself being given a Saturday, March 19th start day, with the beginning of group play there. Supposed to be featuring 3 groups of 4 teams, a double round robin style type of tournament with semifinals and then the championship cup final on Saturday, May 7th. So now it's sort of coming out there that maybe a little bit of overlapping is going to be taking place with this. It's going to be interesting. Maybe, we'll see. Maybe it's a little bit of a test. Maybe it's perhaps testing the waters of transforming Challenge Cup once again. We saw last year how it became this sort of preseason tournament. And now maybe Challenge Cup, we could see another evolution of it, right? Where perhaps we see Challenge Cup as something that takes place throughout the duration of a regular season, within a regular season, right? As a regular season is within its progress. So we'll see. I think this is maybe the first test in perhaps checking the temperatures of those waters. I don't know, or maybe this is just a gaffe and a mix up. I guess we'll find out more.
I mean
We'll
I
hear
mean,
more
there's
about it.
just so many dominoes that will fall based on the reality of this schedule, having the Challenge Cup on May 7th and also regular season games, because the teams that are competing in the Challenge Cup final probably won't know until 2 days before, right? When the semifinals conclude, maybe let's say May 4th, that Wednesday. So then that's when teams will have to reschedule. And if you're competing against one of the teams in the final, you just now get a bye week in the second week of the regular season. And home ticket sales and home openers and season ticket holders and sponsors and right, like there's just so many different people that are affected by this, not and also the players, because leading up to this entire week, say you're not in the Challenge Cup final, you already know that you are out in the quarterfinals, you're preparing for a game on May 7th or that weekend, even the 8th or the 6th, and all of a sudden your competition makes it into the final.
It's so funny because it's like there's like a little bit of like NWSL like fan culture, right? Around the schedule. There's often like, oh, like where's the schedule, right? Like when's it gonna drop, et cetera, et cetera. And it's so funny to sort of see this kind of awkward evolution of that in 2022, where now it's sort of like, wait, what's happening with the schedule? It's like what's going on here? So I'm choosing to take a look at it as jokes and laugh at it a little bit. I think gotta laugh so you don't cry. I guess sometimes we'll see. We're gonna keep an eye on that as along with continuing to keep an eye on ongoing CBA negotiations between the players union and the league front office, and as well as the schedule and how things get impacted there. But we've got a ton of things to get through here in this episode for everyone. A lot of different updates in terms of player acquisitions, trades, moves from various teams and other front office additions and updates there. We'll just go in order with some certain teams here. We're going to start with the Chicago Red Stars. They made an additional announcement on their head coaching update. Lisa, we actually touched on this a little bit not too long ago in one of our episodes, a few episodes back, discussing sort of this timeline for the Red Stars and what was going on with their head coaching search, what possibly could be going on with their head coaching search. And just to sort of put a timeline on it for everyone just joining us today, December 13th, the Red Stars announcing that they were, conducting an ongoing search for a new head coach, and that it was their goal to have to announce a new head coach in January of 2022. And then on Friday, January the 28th, the Chicago Red Stars released an additional announcement, a coaching search update, that basically there is no update, and that the search for a head coach will actually continue for them into the NWSL preseason. That Rade Tanaskosevic will still be carrying the label of acting head coach alongside assistant coaches Julianne Stitch and Fabrice Gautra, who has been with the club for the last 2 years, and I guess will be joining this coaching staff as it's assembled in a sort of official capacity right now. And it's just it's unfortunate they reemphasize what the coaching committee looks like. They assembled a committee to try to go out there and get a new head coach, and it consists of 11 current and former Red Stars players, 3 assistant coaches, a sports psychologist, the club's chief business officer Vicky Lynch, and other members of the club's ownership. So yeah, not a lot going on there in terms of what we were possibly anticipating from Chicago. Again, it's like we're just sort of rehashing this again on this episode, and it was similar to what we were chatting a little bit about on our previous episode, that there wasn't a lot there in terms of attaching a new head coach for this team, Lisa.
Chicago gave themselves this deadline in early December that they would have a coach by January 2022. They made that public information. They put out that statement. They put out that release. They did that to themselves. I mean, January 2022 isn't an unrealistic expectation considering preseason is set to start on February 1st. So you would think you would need a head coach by then. However, Chicago, they couldn't meet their own deadline, right? Like maybe they overestimated the coaching candidates, or they underestimated how tricky it would be to find someone. I'm not really sure. I'm not in those meetings and I'm not on the committee, but it seems like poor planning and poor judgment from Chicago at that point to kind of throw themselves under the bus, say, hey, we'll have an announcement. We're going to have a head coach for everyone. We're doing the search and here's our deadline. And then to say, listen, we haven't found it yet. We're pushing back our deadline into preseason. It's almost like the story that keeps developing with no story. Because there is no head coach and there's no story. It's just that Chicago still has a bunch of question marks around them. And if they want assistant coaches and acting head coaches to be the head coach, I feel like that would have already happened. So that doesn't seem like the case. And if that announcement does come out later in February throughout the NWSL preseason, that would be very surprising, because why not make that decision or come to that conclusion earlier? Or were there no other candidates to take the position? It's just like an odd, sticky situation that Chicago is in, and now Chicago fan bases and Chicago players are confused about. And then, so when Chicago does name a head coach, they have to come into a team that's already been competing throughout preseason, right? Like that's a chance for a new head coach to come in and really get a clean slate and set the tone and the foundation of what they want to do at a club. But if preseason's already started, that's a little bit hard to do, to change things. And you still have the entire season ahead of you of matches to play. It's not like a lot of coaches we saw in the 2021 season coming in the middle of the season. So it's kind of like, all right, pick up the pieces of the last few months and just get to the finish line at the end of the season, which we saw, like 7 clubs do that throughout this regular season. So it is possible, but it's just odd to come in during preseason and to not have a coach already at this point. And as we mentioned, when we did talk about the schedule coming out, there are CBA negotiations. There are other things that league offices are hopefully focused on, right? Like getting a deal with the NWSL Players Association to sign a contract with a CBA for the players so that they do report on February 1st. And this seems like a Chicago club franchise conversation and discussion about their head coach. And yes, there's investigations that happen and you have to do background checks that might involve the league, but like, do we need to hire more people here? I'm just a little bit confused on this.
I mean, yeah, I think it goes without saying that every club in the league probably has to hire more people. I don't think that that's breaking news on that.
And the league.
In terms of a league that's just about to hit a decade years old, that's still kind of considered in its growing phases. I mean, front offices need to expand, right? But in terms of, I think we're watching that sort of unfold with Chicago. Just sort of having almost 60 or 70 days to find a head coach, and still needing a bit more time for that. And in terms of everything outside of the front office or at the administration level, in terms of this search, the reporting that was put out there that perhaps there was a candidate in place, and somebody like Omid Namazi, other reports saying that perhaps that there was a head coach that was tabbed on the European side of the game, but unfortunately things fell through with that. So now you're just adding additional, I don't know if you want to call it mystery around potentially seeking out a new head coach. And I think even with those type of things swirling around, the possibility of either of these candidates being tied to the club as head coach, you go back to this release, this update, this head coach search, and saying that, while we have spoken with multiple highly qualified coaches, we've yet to find the candidate that our players deserve. And it just sort of reads a little bit unnecessarily to me, that that's not something that you maybe need to add into a release like this, considering the rumors that are attached to the club is that there are candidates potentially in place. So then what does that say about these potential candidates that are rumored to be connected to your club? Are they currently not the coaching candidates that are deserving to, be in that position? It's just, again, I'll just leave it at that. Like, it just reads unnecessarily to me, but I think that's been a theme in a lot of Chicago's offseason, that in all of these releases that have sort of not had a direct, person to point to in terms of direction and comment for the club, that there's been a lot of unnecessary type of phrasing within some of these releases, and that includes this current update as well.
I mean, even if you're a coach that applied to this job, or you interviewed, or you wanted to be this head coach, and you read this statement and it's like, so we still don't have a coach. None of our candidates were good enough. Like,
yeah, it's tough. That's like,
heart.
you're reading that and you're like, that sucks. Like, thanks.
It's not like we found someone better, we're going to go in a different direction. It's like, we actually didn't find anyone better than you. You're just not good enough.
Yeah, thanks for speaking with us. As we have stated earlier in this release, we spoke to multiple candidates. None of you are deserving.
We're all bad.
This position. Yeah, it's like it's not great. Yeah, so it's just it's unfortunate, and there is still one club that is going to be heading into their preseason, without a new head coach, or at least just the same coaching staff in place adjacent to this search that has been ongoing for 70 days. And it's unfortunate because we can even take a little step further for Chicago and sort of say that before they made this announcement, they made an announcement about an addition to their staff, and they appointed former Chicago Red Stars player Michelle Lomnicki as the club's associate general manager. And she is a player. She's a person who's been affiliated with the Chicago Red Stars for a very, very long time. She started her pro career in Chicago with the Red Stars in the WPSL in 2009, and then actually played overseas at one point, played a little bit with Sky Blue FC, returned to Chicago from 2012 to 2015. So very much someone who was a part of those very early days of NWSL, right? Which I think people who are perhaps finding themselves new to the league are discovering that it was some very tough times, some very stark growing pains, right? In those early years. And something that was of most interest for me as someone who's kind of followed the club at a local level for quite some time is the fact that this title, that this position was sort of crafted and developed and made for somebody like a Lomnicki to come in and fill the role for. Because as far as the NWSL history of this club, something like a general manager has sort of been a dual title for their head coach. So obviously for the last decade, that was somebody in Rory Dames who was navigating the scouting, the recruiting, and the building and fleshing out of a team alongside head coaching responsibilities. And in terms of an associate general manager, an official role that has been developed, this is the first of its kind for this club. So, she's someone who, along with having that playing experience with the team, has been attached to this franchise in terms of the youth soccer programs in Chicago, was appointed director of the Red Stars camps and clinics. So closely tied to the youth academies there. And this hire just sort of goes right in line with something that we're
Mhm.
seeing across the league already in terms of seeing former players in these types of positions.
It does. And I think this is a great hire for Chicago because as a player who not only competed in the league and at the professional level and overseas, having a lot of experience as a player, but with this club specifically and spent time there as a player, understanding the ins and outs of it from that perspective, and then continued to stay involved with that club specifically. So she saw really the change in the club over the last few years and especially throughout the 2021 season and everything that happened with former head coach Rory Dames and how all of that was uncovered and he went under investigation. So to have that perspective from a player's standpoint formerly, then as someone involved in the youth side of the game in the club, to now really take on a front office leadership role as a GM. I mean, that's huge. And she already said in the statement, Chicago said that she's already been in this role since during the draft, because again, they didn't have a head coach. So they needed to rely on a lot of people in the front office to help. So Michelle helped with the draft. She helped with different player contract discussions. She helped bring Yuki Nagasato back from Louisville to Chicago Red Stars. And Sandra, as you mentioned, this is a common theme across the league and across many different clubs. Michelle now becomes the fourth player to be named an NWSL club general manager. We had Karina LeBlanc happening earlier this year, Yale Averbush West at Gotham, Karina at the Thorns, Cami Levin at Kansas City, and now in Chicago, former players stepping into that GM role. So there are good things happening at Chicago. And I think we need to remember that Chicago is a very good soccer club. They have made the NWSL playoffs for 6 consecutive years, including making it to the NWSL championship in 2021. So they have good players, they have good bones, they have a good city around them supporting them. And they're getting the pieces together in the front office, specifically hiring a general manager like this, but still waiting for that final piece of the head coach. But I mean, it seems like a good place to go as a coach if you're looking for a highly competitive team with good support from the front office and players that frankly are very, very good on the pitch. But
Yeah.
I think that this hire of a GM is going to do a lot for the players in this club specifically. And with all of the fights that have been happening in the league with the CBA, this is a good role for her to have.
Yeah, I agree. I think the title is probably limiting what her role is actually going to be within the club, and especially now in light of knowing that this head coaching search is still ongoing, that preseason could happen, without a head coach. They're likely probably going to rely on her pretty heavily in all this, and it's just sort of yeah, I'm in agreement with you. As many, I guess, looking at the pros and cons, as many cons as you can maybe look at sort of this process for Chicago, there's these other pros that we're picking out, and it almost looks as if a staff is being built up around this position. It's just a matter of who and when and if that head coaching role is going to be fulfilled. And yeah, they'll be inheriting. I think I referred to it as a top 4 midfield in the league, right? Several U.S. women's national team star players. And a team that already has familiarity with each other, right? So that's a thing that this team maybe doesn't have to worry so much about heading into a preseason. They're a team with a core group of players that have mostly been together for a while, and we'll see what happens. It's something that it's just another thing that we're gonna have to keep our eye on, that is not officially taken care of or tied up just yet. But it's not Chicago, the only team making moves or announcing lack thereof. We are going to get through some more teams right after a quick break. All right, we got to hop back into everything here. We got to talk about some player departures. Actually, we got to talk about some player acquisitions. We got to go through some more clubs here on the NWSL side of things in terms of news and notes. Let's start with another big one after this break here. Portland Thorns FC. Lindsey Horan, both announcing that she is getting set to join Olympique Lyonnais on loan. This has actually been rumored for a little while. It's something that we've actually touched on on a little bit before in the past, right, Lisa? Just talking a little bit as, perhaps, just a rumor, something that we just thought could potentially happen. But Lindsey Horan, 6 seasons with the Thorns, 87 match appearances, 25 goals, returning to France for the first time since actually leaving Paris Saint-Germain in 2016. And it's a big deal. I don't know if people are recognizing how big that is. At 27 years old, I think for a lot of women's pro athletes who are at this type of level that Herrera is currently at, really kind of some entering sort of the prime of her career. And she's going to be doing this now with Lyon through at least the halfway point of 2023. So it's just within this announcement, during this announcement of her making her departure to be with Lyon, the Thorns also made the additional news that Lindsey Horan signed an extension with Portland. So, in 2020, there was a lot of news around the fact that the Portland franchise had specific contracts for these players, for Lindsey Horan, for Crystal Dunn, right? These are contracts that were directly with the club. And so with Horan expressing this desire to perhaps return to France, and now this coming to fruition, that initial contract, it sounds like that has been sort of restructured a little bit, and an extension was also signed in line with this loan to Lyon. So while being in Lyon for 2023, intentions to eventually return, and that will be with Portland through 2025. So big deal. Finally, we were talking about rumors, and another one coming to life, Lisa.
I like when we talk about the rumors, because this one has been a rumor for pretty much the entirety of the 2021 season, because we would have people tweeting at us at Attacking Third, what's happening with Lindsey Horan? Is she leaving? Is she staying? Will we have her for the championship? And she stayed throughout the entirety of the 2021 season, and now making the decision to head over to France and go to Lyon. And for a player like this, Sandra, you did touch on this, 27 years old. Really, she is at the prime and the peak of her career right now with the United States women's national team. She has become the playmaker, the number one player that they need on the pitch to help them succeed. She can play an attacking midfield position and be very creative. If all of the United States women's national team sixes and defensive mids go down, she can slot into that more defensive midfield role. She took the number 10 jersey and that was handed off to her from Carly Lloyd. She is a very special player that has a tremendous skill set on the pitch. And we've seen what she has done at Portland for the last 6 seasons, continued to have them be one of the most competitive clubs in the league and continuously competing at the highest level for championships and even helping to win them. So for her to now take her skills and go to Lyon, I think will be so good for her career, because she's already played at PSG and she's played the European game, and it taught her different things. And every time you can go into a new experience like that and come out with different skill set, a different take on the game, more knowledge about the game by learning from the players around you, you grow as a player. And if there's one thing about Lindsey Horan, it's that she wants to be one of the best in the world, and she is on her way there by taking herself out of the NWSL, away from Portland, a place that has most definitely become comfortable for her over the last handful of years. And putting herself in an uncomfortable situation in Lyon will only help her grow and get better and challenge her to be a better soccer player, to be a better leader, to be a better follower, because all of those skills are so important. Of course, with the hopes of coming back to the NWSL, joining Portland again, by growing a little bit after going to Lyon. I like this a lot. I'm excited to watch her over there. Of course, I'm sad for us covering the NWSL as closely as we do, that I won't be able to watch her and analyze her game as professionally as I do when she is in the NWSL. Now I definitely become more of a fan watching her in Lyon, but I'm happy for her and the growth of her, and hopefully the growth of United States American soccer because of trades and loans like this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on all that 100%. I mean, and it's, her going back now at this stage in her career, she's not the same player she was when she initially left France, right? So it'll be interesting to sort of see her game, how it adapts or adjusts to, or how the French league sort of adjusts to a Lindsey Horan at 27 years old back in their league, right? So it'll be nice to see it. And also with this news, it maybe sort of opened up or answered some other different questions in regards to other signings that Portland has made. They announced just before Lindsey Horan's departure the signing of Japanese international Hina Sugita, a 24-year-old Japanese international, signing a 3-year deal, a transfer fee utilizing some allocation money to INAC Kobe. So it's going to be Portland for a long time. This is an investment in this particular player. And there was a reaction around it immediately when this signing was announced, like where this particular player was going to be utilized. And now with the departure of Horan, maybe we're starting to get some of those answers a little bit more. Maybe this midfielder is going to be used maybe more in an attacking sense than anything else. Very, very good playmaker. So that's exciting for Portland. But probably the biggest news, right, alongside the retirement of Celeste Bure, who is making her departure as a Portland Thorns, was a contract extension, right, for the famously known Christine Sinclaire, signing an extension through 2022 with an option for 2023. And I don't think you can get any more Portland Thorn than that, right? In terms of making sure that Sinclaire stays right where she's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think if Portland fans are listening and hearing this news for the first time, you're heartbroken that Lindsey Horan is headed overseas, but you feel a sense of security knowing that Christine Sinclaire is still around. She is not going anywhere, not yet. She's staying with Portland, staying in the game. That was another rumored topic of discussion, if this could be the end for Christine Sinclaire, go out on top. Nope, she's back, extension through 2022. And you love to see the little option for 2023. Of course, a lot can change in a year, but it's great to see Christine Sinclaire, and also signing Hina Sugita, the Japanese international player. I think that this player filling in the holes that Lindsey Horan is maybe leaving behind might not happen as seamlessly as Thorns will hope it does, and Rain Wilkinson and Karina LeBlanc. However, this is a really good get for Portland because a player like Sugita can do a lot. She has a lot of international experience at the Olympics and at World Cup. She can play defensively. She can play more attacking minded, almost like a Lindsey Horan. I wouldn't compare them too much though, as they do have different abilities on the field, but the transition for her might be difficult heading into the NWSL. That is such a competitive, physical game. So a little bit of adjustment there, but Portland, they're making a lot of moves, and these moves coming later in the end of the trade window, right before the start of preseason.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at a team that we've been wondering about in terms of their roster and how it's going to look for the 2022 season. Orlando Pride. We thought they might have been done, but that's not true. They're still a part of ongoing trade discussions. Most recently, trading Ellie Riley to Angel City, Orlando getting a 2023 NWSL third round draft pick and $15,000 in allocation money. The New Zealand international, but American born, kind of a California native, heading on back home. So in terms of people who are trying to keep track of a timeline of talent loss from Orlando Pride during this offseason, we are now at the following: Orlando losing Alex Morgan, Jody Taylor heading on over to Wave FC, Ellie Krieger and Ashen Harris, and their baby girl Sloan heading on over to Gotham FC. We also talked about their top draft pick in Mia Fischel, opting to sign with Tigres Femenil of Liga MX Femenil, and then Taylor Korniak also departing for Wave FC, and now Ellie Riley heading on over to Angel City FC. A lot of trades, a lot of allocation money involved throughout a lot of these trades. I think we're talking about perhaps just a little over $1 million now, I think, in allocation money. There has been a ton going back and forth alongside of this. And a lot of maybe Orlando Pride fans taking a look and saying, geez, like what's going on with the roster here? What's it going to look like in terms of having somebody like a Sydney LaRue or a Martha, who there hasn't been a lot of noise made about that. But Orlando has behind the scenes also sort of been conducting their usual business and making their signings for some of their rookies as well, making contracts for their first-round draft pick in Julie Doyle, a forward out of Santa Clara, a one-year contract with an option for an extra year, and signing Michaela Clough through 2023, who was a 2021 Matt Herman Trophy finalist. So on the one hand, making a ton of moves, right, for allocation money, and sort of seeing this departure of players who were so synonymous with Orlando Pride, but also trying to lock up some contracts with some of the rookies that I think they're hoping to build around. And just when we thought, Lisa, that we were going to hop onto this episode and record and get it all in with Orlando Pride, there was another announcement that was made in terms of a trade.
Yes, the Orlando keeps sending their players away, I'm going to say, not losing them. I don't know. It sure looks like a loss to me when you run down that list of everyone. Trading midfielder Marissa Vigiano to Houston Dash. And it's just an interesting trade there between Marissa Vigiano, midfielder, and then Megan Montefusco, who is formerly Megan Oyster, heading to Orlando Pride, in addition to $30,000 in allocation money and OL Reign's natural third-round pick in the 2023 NWSL draft. So that is all happening to Orlando Pride. So now, in addition to Alex Morgan, Jody Taylor, Krieger, Harris, Mia Fischel, Taylor Korniak, Ali Riley, now it's Marissa Vigiano, an attacking midfielder that has been with Orlando and been with the Pride since Vigiano was drafted in 2019, but she is headed to Houston. So Houston lucking out a little bit, getting another midfielder to throw into the mix. And remember, Houston lost Christy Mewis. That was sent to Gotham. That was during the expansion draft. And then thereafter, with a little bit of trading happening. So Orlando, they're doing a lot of things that I'm not super knowledgeable about why they're doing this. So I'm a little bit confused, because you do have to look at who's left for Orlando. I know you mentioned Marta and Sydney LaRue, excuse me. And then now signing all of these younger players in Michaela Clough, who they selected in 2021, that chose to go back and play for BYU. And then also Julie Doyle. They have a lot of young players mixed with Marta and Sydney LaRue, who are very much veteran players. I think that Amanda Cromwell at Orlando just she needs a little bit of help, a little bit of time to kind of figure things out. And in gathering so many draft picks for the 2023 season, I think she has her eyes set on the future and not so much this season. And this season really will be a rebuilding year for Orlando. There have been a number of other signings throughout the league, though. Let's stick with North Carolina Courage. At this point, they signed Katie Bowen from Kansas City. So North Carolina and Sean Nahas gathering some players there. And then also some potential retirement news, Sandra?
Question mark? I don't know. I'm with you. That's how we gotta, I guess, address this one. I mean, USC announcing that Amy Rodriguez is going to be joining their coaching staff, which is huge. Congratulations to her. A World Cup champion, an Olympic gold medalist, going to be joining that the collegiate program as an assistant coach. She's an alumni who's making her return, finished playing with the Trojans in 2008, and then was pretty much a mainstay forward with the United States women's national team from 2005 through about 2018. And was currently with North Carolina Courage, made her arrival there to Courage Country through a mid-season trade with Kansas City Current. So seeing this news kind of come out, it broke through the collegiate side of things. It came through USC saying, hey, we've added Amy Rodriguez to our staff because she will, and referring to it because she'll be retiring from playing professionally. And it was just a little peculiar to sort of see that and then sort of not see any type of retirement announcements via North Carolina Courage, right? Or even the league for that matter. This is a player who has been playing for a very long time, ending her career at 34 years old. Again, mentioning that, yes, World Cup champion, Olympic gold medalist, but this is a player who was with one of the founding franchises of NWSL and won 2 championships with the then FC Kansas City team from the Kansas City team that was, way back in the early days. And kind of coming back to Kansas City with the Current is to sort of try to help uh, relaunch a women's pro team in that market, in that area, and then to be traded mid-season to North Carolina Courage to sort of help them out in their kind of late season push to make a return to the playoffs, which they did. But this is probably one of the most decorated, probably one of the most important players in the early histories of NWSL, and I really do think she should be celebrated as such in terms of just her accomplishments, on the pitch. But this is a huge pickup. I think if you're looking at the college program side of things for USC, they are absolutely getting a baller in this one.
This is a huge player. I mean, I remember watching her as a little girl on the women's national team, watching A-Rod cheering for her, and then to see her go through the evolution of starting a family and having children and then working her ass off to get back into top shape and do just that. But when you look at North Carolina, we talked about all that Orlando had lost. North Carolina, they've lost Lynn Williams, they've lost Sam Mewis, they've lost Jess McDonald, and now Amy Rodriguez. So interesting for North Carolina. A lot of their attacking weapons are gone after this year. So it's another team that we have to keep an eye on, I think. But as you mentioned, this is a huge, huge get for USC, her alma mater. She's heading back there and for the future, right? I mean, we talked about Chicago. They don't have a head coach. They're still looking for one. To have former players that are retiring and stepping immediately into coaching roles, even assisting coaching roles, that's huge. You can learn so much. And at a high college level, it's good for the future, right? We could maybe see A-Rod coaching an NWSL club in a few years. I'm putting it out there. Manifest it, Sandra.
I would love to see it. I absolutely would. I'm not even trying to say that I wouldn't. I would love to see it. I mean, California's got 2 teams out there. Who knows? Maybe they'll be expanding those staffs as well. We'll see. OL Reign also making news, not to be left out in terms of off-season news, announcing Megan Rapinoe on a 1-year contract and Rose Lavelle on a 2-year contract. Both of the contracts for Rapinoe and Lavelle utilizing allocation money coming off of United States Women's National Team Federation contracts. These are contracts directly with the club. Also making the announcement that Bethany Balcer is going to be returning to the club, signing a contract extension for a 3-year deal all the way through 2025. And then also re-signing another veteran of the club, defender Lauren Barnes. Lou is getting a 1-year deal with the team. So got to look through all of these signings. And honestly, if you're an OL Reign fan, I think if you're looking at these are all clutch signings. I think a lot of folks are very, very excited to see Rose Lavelle on a 2-year contract. I think getting her mid-season, right, last year in 2021, you just sort of saw maybe some of the beginnings of what could be happening with Lavelle on a Laura Harvey-led side. And I think for OL Reign, I think these are all home runs for sure.
These have to be home runs. It's almost along the lines of the Christine Sinclaire re-signing with Portland Thorns. It's a little bit of security heading into the 2022 season with Rapinoe, Lavelle, Balcer. I love to see a 3-year deal for undrafted Bethany Balcer. Remember in 2019, she's a player that continues to grow. And I think under head coach Laura Harvey, can have a lot of growth there. So I'm really excited for Bethany Balcer. And then, of course, Lou Barnes getting that 1-year deal, another veteran defender that can do a lot. So it's a lot of stability and security for OL Reign fans. Kansas City Current, they are also saying goodbye to a few of their players. Defender Rachel Corsie, the Scottish international, she signs with Aston Villa, as well as forward Jessica Silva. She was traded to Benfica in Portugal. So losing 2 players in a defender and a forward, but as we talked about, right, Lynn Williams, Sam Mewis heading over to Kansas City. There's so many trades happening throughout this offseason. My boards are going to be a mess for 2022. We talked about it a little bit before. Racing Louisville, they acquired Jess McDonald. It's official, though. She signed a 2-year contract with Racing Louisville, so she'll be a veteran forward leadership for Louisville that they really need heading into the 2022 season. They lost Yuki Nagasato. Savannah McCaskill is gone from there. Michelle Betos. It's a little bit of changeover happening in Louisville as well.
Absolutely. And San Diego can't be left out of the mix, right? They still made one more move. Joining the side is going to be Carly Telford from Chelsea, goalkeeper, solidifying that goalkeeper position. They've already got Kaylin Sheridan as their starting goalkeeper, and then adding a veteran piece like this, I think, is great for a 1-2 punch, I think, of their goalkeeping union there that they're starting to build out in San Diego. A lot there to get through, but we got through it together, Lisa.
We did get there, Sandra, and a lot has happened and a lot continues to happen. And as we're on the verge of the NWSL 2022 preseason starting, so many question marks surrounding there. There's so many more things that we will be coming to our listeners with information and everything ahead, because so much is happening and continues to happen, and we've got it all for you here. That's what we do, Sandra.
That's what we do. We do have it all, including AFC Women's Cup matches on Paramount Plus. I just want to remind everyone that quarterfinals are going to be kicking off this week, so try not to miss a game. But if you do, understand the kickoff times are a little bit inconvenient stateside. But if you miss it, you can catch full highlights on Attacking Third YouTube. Visit youtube.com/Attacking Third. Thank you, everybody, for joining and listening to us today. You can follow us on Twitter at Attacking Third. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to your podcast shows. You can leave us a 5-star review now on Spotify. And if you have any questions for us, you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with your question, and Lisa and I will answer it during our mailbag segment. We're also available as video. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And we will be back on Wednesday with more coverage and exclusive interviews for Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman. This was Attacking Third.